We are now convening Calbright College Board of Trustees meeting. Please call the roll.
Hildegard Aguinaldo. Darius Anderson. Jeffrey Baum.
Here.
Felicia Escobar Carrillo. Amy Costa. Colm Fitzgerald.
Here.
Tom Epstein.
Here.
Pamela Haynes.
Here.
Kevin Hall.
Here.
Jolena Grande.
Here.
Jennifer Perry. Kim Perigo.
Here.
Bill Rawlings.
Here.
Valerie Lynn Shaw. Alma Salazar. Blas Villalobos.
Here.
Alexis Zaragoza.
Here.
Okay, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think Mr. Hull should lead that since he was the crucial.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Due to scheduling challenges and calendar issues and pursuant to Government Code Sections 59455, I move to adjourn the meeting to tomorrow for November 19th, 2019 at 9 a.m. at the very same location in order for all interested parties to attend the meeting. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Please call the roll.
Jeffrey Baum.
Aye.
Tom Epstein.
Aye.
Pamela Haynes.
Aye.
Kevin Hall. Jolena Grande.
Aye.
Kim Perigo.
Aye.
Bill Rawlings.
Aye.
Blas Villalobos. Alexis Zaragoza.
Aye.
Okay, the motion to adjourn the meeting is passed, and it is hereby ordered that the meeting be adjourned. This meeting shall continue tomorrow, November 19th, 2019, at 9 a.m. at this very same location. Okay, that closes the Calbright meeting. We will now convene the meeting of the Board of Governors.
Oh, yes, please.
Continuing with all the exciting developments this morning, we're going to call the roll for the Board of Governors. Christina,
Yes.
call the roll.
Thank you. Hildegard Aguinaldo. Darius Anderson. Jeffrey Baum.
Here.
Amy Costa. Tom Epstein.
Here.
Felicia Escobar Carrillo.
Here.
Colm Fitzgerald.
Here.
Jolena Grande.
Here.
Pamela Haynes.
Here.
Kevin Hall.
Here.
Kim Perigo.
Here.
Jennifer Perry. Bill Rawlings.
Here.
Alma Salazar. Valerie Shaw. Blas Villalobos. Alexis Zaragoza.
Here.
Okay, well, it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. Since it's near Veterans Day, I'm going to ask a member of Villalobos to lead us. Okay. For my present report, it'll be very brief. I just want to thank the two colleges that I and Colm attended this in the last couple of weeks. One was San Mateo College, who gave us a very nice visit. Member Hull participated in that as well. And then also just last week at Solano College, where the college showed us quite an interesting biotechnology facility, as well as got to meet a lot of the key people there. Also, I attended the California Economic Summit, where our chancellor was on a panel, and the governor spoke, and the community colleges were very well represented and received as a key part of the economic future of California, and proud to be there. With that, I will turn it over to the chancellor.
Thank you, Board President Epstein, and good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I have a few updates that I'll try to be as brief as possible. First of all, on the heels of what Board President Epstein just mentioned, we were in Fresno for the California Economic Summit, and at that summit, the governor made a series of announcements. One of them involves the California community colleges. As many of you know, he recently formed a post-secondary council. That council has been working with the governor to develop a plan to launch a pilot initiative in the Fresno region. The purpose of that pilot and that initiative is to bring all of the educational partners in that region together, the K-12 system, the community colleges in that region, the CSU, Fresno State, as well as UC Merced, and several of the private non-for-profit institutions in that area. And the goal is to significantly increase post-secondary credential attainment for the Fresno region by completely redesigning the way that the systems, the educational institutions interact with each other. So the Post-Secondary Council will be working with the governor. I will be working directly with our colleges in the area, and the hope is that we can put together a plan, launch an initiative that we can replicate across the Central Valley, across the Inland Empire, and other areas of the state where we need to significantly increase post-secondary credential attainment. So Governor has pledged resources for the area, pledged resources for this specific initiative, so we look forward to working with him and all of our partners in the greater Fresno area. A bit of good news. I want to recognize that our Deputy Chancellor will be receiving an award here shortly. The Sacramento Hispanic Chamber will bestow on her the 2019 Estrella Award for her impact in this region. The event will be on December 10th, be a luncheon event. We'll make sure that the Board of Governors has all that information, but I just want to publicly congratulate Daisy for this wonderful recognition for her work. Also being recognized that day is a former member of the Board of Governors, Alice Perez, who some of you served with, so she will also be recognized at that event. I want to take a moment to introduce someone. Let's see, is Jim Austin there he is, hiding in the back. Many of you know that we appointed Jim Austin as the fiscal monitor for Peralta, and I'll say a few words about Peralta in just a minute. But we've also asked Jim to come back to the Chancellor's office. Some of you know that he spent a little time as the interim Vice Chancellor of Finance for a period of time. We've asked him to come back and help us specifically with the student-centered funding formula. Jim Austin is a very well-respected former chief business officer in the system. He's continues to be an educator in many leadership programs, continues to do a lot of work on behalf of the system in his retirement, and very frequently comes back from retirement, so we thank him for coming back again. So I want to welcome Jim Austin to the Chancellor's Office team again. Thank you, Jim, for your service. Speaking of Peralta, I just want to take a moment to publicly congratulate the Peralta Community College District for hiring an amazing individual as their chancellor, Regina Stanbeck-Stroud, who has taken the reins recently, and we will continue to work with Regina and her team to support the Peralta District. The Board of Governors knows that Jim Austin has been the fiscal monitor. His most recent report we summarized in the last Board of Governors update, but we will be sending you the full text, and then we will have Jim come back in the new year to report on the progress that's being made at Peralta. On that note, I do want to make mention of a recent development in the San Diego County area. Palomar Community College District recently received a report back from FCMAT that raised some serious concerns about their fiscal stability. I have been in conversations with the superintendent president there. Joy and her team have been briefing me on what's been happening. But the events that have been transpiring are very troubling to me and to the Chancellor's office. So we will come back to you at the January meeting. We will ensure that you receive the FCMAT report. And just as we did with Peralta, we're going to ask that the superintendent president and the board president come to the meeting in January to report to the Board of Governors on the actions that they're taking. We're going to continue to monitor the situation. There's, in addition to the fiscal matters, there's a lot of political matters going on there. So it's very concerning. And as we all know, the fiscal stability of that district is hugely important to the success of the students and of that community. So we will be taking a close look at what's going on there. On a happier note, I want to thank the faculty, staff, and students of the Lake Tahoe Community College District, Cerritos Community College District, and Santa Barbara Community College District. Those are the three campuses that we recently did Chancellor's Office listening tour. And as always, these colleges presented their very best. It's amazing students that we got to see, and a lot of great work that's happening at our colleges. So I want to thank them all for opening their doors to us, and I want to thank the members of the Board of Governors who were able to attend. Earlier this month, the Chancellor's Office and the Academic Senate completing their work on the 7th edition of the Program and Course Approval Handbook. The handbook contains course approval criteria and procedures for securing course and program approvals. I want to thank the Academic Senate and their leadership and the faculty that participated for their work in producing this 7th edition. Today we will speak a little bit about the student-centered funding formula. We recently sent a memo to the field clarifying some issues. We continue to work with all the parties, CEOs, faculty, trustees, to continue to improve the implementation of the student-centered funding formula. Some good news that will be coming in December is as we report on the final revenue numbers for the most recent budget year, those numbers continue to improve. So those districts that saw some of the largest reductions in funding at the beginning of the year will see most of that revenue come back to them. So we think that that's good news. It's unfortunate that we couldn't see those revenues at the beginning of the year, but we will get there. And then finally, this Thursday is the League's annual conference. We look forward to being there. I will have a chance to give a report on the state of the system, so I want to thank Larry Lizette and the entire team at the League for helping us get ready for that, and we look forward to seeing everyone there. And that concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you. A couple of quick announcements. The board will meet today until 5 p.m. or as long as it takes to finish the agenda. It's a single-day meeting. So since you have an ambitious agenda, I'm going to ask staff, guests, and members to keep their comments brief and focused on the issue agendized. And as a reminder, members of the public may provide public comment in conjunction with board discussion on each item. A written request card to address the board must be completed. And persons wishing to make a presentation on a subject not on the agenda may do so during the time listed as public forum. A written request card to address the board must be completed. And with that, I'll call up Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez. Congratulations on your award, and to do the consent calendar.
Good morning. Good morning, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, board members, Chancellor Oakley. You have 2 items in front of you under consent. Unless there are any questions or requests to remove the items, your standing orders do not require a presentation on either item.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Second by Member Hall. Okay, any discussion? Member Rawlings.
I believe I may have a correction, and I just want to make sure. 1.2. On page 9, third sentence from the bottom. I think it's the third line in that paragraph. You refer to San Diego County Auditor Controller.
I see it.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I believe
So-
it should be Santa Clara. Is that correct?
Francis, do you know that answer?
Santa Clara is referred to elsewhere in that section, so that's what I was thinking. But I just want to make sure we have that corrected.
We'll check on that.
So do I need a new motion with that correction, or? Member Baum, do you want to amend your motion to?
I'll amend the motion pending a potential amendment to the minutes to reflect the, after the deputy chancellor's had a chance to clarify.
Second that.
Okay. With that, very impressive, Member Rawlings. Your editorial skill is noted. And with all that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, the consent calendar is approved. Next up, approval of contracts and grants. Dr. Gonzalez.
All right. Today you have 3 items in front of you for your approval. Item 1 is a memorandum of understanding with FIGMAT. This MOU outlines many of the things that you're already aware of in terms of what they do. It consists of allowing the FIGMAT team to continue to perform audits, examinations, and reviews of districts, and to provide technical assistance. Most recently, the FIGMAT team developed the Student Center Funding Formula Calculator tool, which will assist districts in budget development, and that will be released very soon. The MOU is just meant to document the work that they're doing on behalf of our system. It's in line with what is already adopted by the Legislative Budget Act. Item 2 consists of 3 non-competitive contracts to hire 3 regional coordinators to assist colleges to better serve incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students. The positions are funded with one-time dollars provided by the State Budget Act. And in hiring these 3 regional coordinators, the expertise and the knowledge of the region that they will be serving was prioritized. Item 3 consists of 3 competitive grants to fund 20 new innovative apprenticeship programs that meet local and state labor market needs. The dollar amounts match the applications that were submitted by each applicant to create the respective apprenticeship program. So that's why you see the variation. If it looks familiar, it's because you had previously approved funding, I believe in July, attached to this funding. The purpose here is different. In the prior vote, the goal was to increase apprenticeship programs in rural and agriculture. This one is very different, and there are 20 in front of you. With that, I'll take any questions.
I have a question. Chancellor, on page 19 for the San Joaquin County Office of Education, what is Growing Our Own? What is that program?
I'm going to ask Vice Chancellor Shinny Weber to come on up and answer that question for you.
I don't have any details at this time, but I can get that to you.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, is it food related? Is it marijuana related? Or
It is not marijuana related, I can guarantee you that. So the process of this application, it goes out to all the colleges who are interested in partnering with industry to establish apprenticeship programs in non-traditional industries that don't utilize apprenticeship models traditionally. So these are all non-traditional, primarily non-traditional industries. And you can see that some of it included the one right before, Kitchens for Good. That's a culinary program.
what's non-traditional mean?
So it's traditional is in mostly trades, so all the construction, the electrical, all of the trades, the 27 different trades. The non-traditional would be healthcare, information technology, in culinary, these kinds of industries that don't usually utilize apprenticeship programs.
Okay.
Member Baum?
I have questions about item number 2. First off, I guess I'll just give them in 3 steps. These individuals, how are they selected? To whom will they report and be managed? And then how come the compensation isn't consistent across the 3 individuals?
So if you recall, this is a part of the challenge that our office always has with having to go through fiscal agents. So these regional coordinators will report to the fiscal agent in this situation. In partnership with our office, they will work on behalf of our office. So that has not changed in terms of how our office is able to use Proposition $98. These 3 specific regional coordinators will work with the educational services team, and that would be Vice Chancellor Marty Alvarado's team, much like the guided pathways coordinators. The salary differences were negotiated with each of the hires. Primarily, the difference is in the region, and that's how it was contracted out. And what was your third question?
How are they selected?
How were they selected? I'm going to ask Vice Chancellor Marty Alvarado to come on up and explain that. We were expecting that question.
Good morning. Because these are quick start and short-term, limited-term positions, we worked with the Opportunity Institute to go through a selection process. We looked for experts who had existing relationships with both the institutions and the jails and prisons within the regions, and they were selected through that process, through a process of identifying existing experts within the regions, and then individuals who would be willing to accept a short-term position that was very limited and had to get up and running very quickly.
And who's the Opportunity Institute?
It's a nonprofit organization that is contracted to work with our office to support our inmate programs.
And who's the fiscal agent for this?
I do not recall off the top of my head. I can confirm that.
So, but we've had to contract with a fiscal agent for the financial administration of this program. Is the assumption that these individuals are full-time?
They're contracted, so I don't know that it translates to full-time. It's very much deliverables based and the scope of activities that they'll be required to complete quarterly and over the 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Because so it's about 2.5 years, as I
Correct,
read it.
2.5 years.
Roughly about $150,000-$60,000 a person.
Correct.
Right, per year compensation. But that's contract compensation, doesn't include any other benefits.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Member Escobar Carrillo?
I had a question back to item 3, or a couple questions. Was wondering, I know you selected 20 programs, but was wondering how many applications you received, and then also if you all are thinking about, how some of these might, how you might foster learning between the grantees, understanding that maybe they're not all similar, but there's some that seem to be kind of clustered around certain areas like tech.
So we received 33 applications for this round, and all applicants are part of the community of practice that's supporting through the CAI grant, and they participate in a series of activities and meetings and ongoing technical assistance support that's provided by the Chancellor's Office through the foundation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
Second.
Member Perigo, Member Rawlings. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. On to item 2.2, General Counsel Laforestier.
Good morning, President Epstein. Good morning, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, and members. This is another one of the election change items that you've seen over the months. This is for the San Joaquin Delta Community College District, and I'm joined here by Monica Streeter, who is legal counsel to the district, and trustee member Janet Rivera, who will talk to you about their process and answer any questions you have about the materials in the board agenda.
Good morning, President, member of the Board of Governors, Chancellor, Monica Streeter with Newmiller and Beardsley, and we are counsel for the San Joaquin Delta Community College District, which I'll just refer to as Delta College for simplicity. The Delta College Board of Trustees made the decision to voluntarily transfer and transition from an at-large process to a by-district or by-trustee area process. They received several presentations on the statutory requirements, the legal requirements, and the procedures and processes that they would have to undertake, and then complied with all of those, including 4 public hearings before their Board of Trustees, as well as extensive public outreach, both before draft maps were published and after draft maps were published. They did hold informational open house type events in each one of their 7 trustee areas prior to publication and then post-publication. And then at the last and final public hearing, they did make the decision, adopted a resolution to make the transition to the by-trustee area process, adopted a map, as well as established an election schedule. And I can answer any specific questions regarding that process if you have any.
Member Baum.
Has the board yet adopted any of these 3 options yet?
At their August 20th meeting, they did adopt draft map C. That's the map that they moved forward with, and they did establish the series of elections as well as adopt the transition process pending your approval.
It's clear that Stockton's kind of the heart of this district, so I see that. And just for information, do each of the incumbent board members maintain an individual district or not?
Each one of the trustees reside and represent their trustee area, but they are elected at large.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you. So given the federal guidelines, making certain that certain boundaries are met relative to communities of interest, that's a particular requirement. When I looked at the 3, I couldn't make a determination on why C was chosen over, when you look at the demographics and the breakdown. So what was the thinking between A, B, and C? What made C the most, did it meet in a better way what the federal and state guidelines are, or were there other issues or concerns that were raised as a result of discussion, and therefore C was selected?
The Board of Trustees had significant discussion regarding this matter, and they recognize that when the 2020 census data is completed and that information is available, that they will have to undertake this process again in 2021. So recognizing that and also balancing that with their desire to move forward to the by-trustee area election process, they wanted to minimize the potential for voter confusion, because we do recognize that there has been significant growth in the area of the Delta College District, and many of the trustee areas are likely to change. So rather than have the potential where somebody residing in one district in the 2020 election then is now residing in a different district in the 22 election, we wanted to minimize that potential, and so that's why we moved forward with option C.
Thank you for that clarification. And then I just want to make certain I understand. So currently, it's 7 members, right? 7 members of the board don't have to live in these new districts at this point, but would run for them in 2020 and 2022, or that they currently do now that the vote is taken?
That is correct. Each one of the trustees resides within those districts.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Any other question? Member Escobar Carrillo?
Hi, I was just wondering kind of how you arrived at this decision as to move in this direction. Was there conversation with people in the community? Yeah.
I can answer that. Yes, there was conversation in the community, and one of the things that we as trustees thought about is currently, for instance, if you want to run, we run in 5 counties. Currently in San Joaquin County, it costs a candidate to run for office. It's $24,000. It really doesn't seem fair that with that amount of money, we can't recruit new trustees to run in that seat. So splitting the trustees' districts up in terms of your own district, it makes it so much easier to run. And rather than $24,000, it may cost the individual $5,000 or $6,000, and that's affordable for a student or anyone else who wants to run for office.
Any other questions? I've got one. I mean, several board members have asked about the current makeup of the trustees and new districts. Was the fact that the current trustees each have a residence in each of these new districts a consideration in the creation of the plan?
Currently we do, but that could change with the census count. And it could be that there, in the different designs that we were presented, there were some trustees that, for instance, the Manteca trustee was completely out of their district, and it swung over to Tracy, and vice versa. Tracy person, all their constituents would swing over to Manteca. So it would move trustees around.
Not the one you picked, but a different one?
Right, not the one we picked.
And so are all 7 trustees up in 2022 under the new districts?
There are 4 up in 2020, and then there are 3 up in 2022.
But you're going to redistrict in between those 2?
Yes. No, well, we're hoping to redistrict now.
I mean, so you think with this map anticipates demographic changes that you expect to see in the 2020 census? Is that what you're saying?
I believe so.
The current map, the current decision anticipates that there will be significant changes, and we're attempting to minimize the confusion that may cause in 2022. We anticipate that the biggest changes to trustee areas will occur for the 2022 election. And that may disrupt the currently sitting trustees, and they all are aware of that.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Rawlings, second.
Second.
Member Baum. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
You are redistricted. Okay, General Counsel of Forestier, you have the next one too. The amendments to the board procedures and standing orders, item 2.3.
Thank you. So you'll recall that this was an item that we had before the board at the last meeting, and there was in particular some concern surrounding paragraph A4, which concerned members' support of board decisions. So we took another pass at that language, took a hard look at it. Member Perigo and I had a lengthy conversation and exchange of ideas about that paragraph. I also consulted with the governor's appointments staff to solicit their views on the language. And the sum and substance of the review is my conclusion that the language we were asking was not out of bounds with respect to what is expected at other within the community college system, and you'll see in the materials there's a fairly detailed discussion of that. and with respect to the state university. But we did try to soften the language somewhat in A4 so that we have removed the word support. And instead we have a line that indicates that it references the importance of active discussion among members, careful consideration of public comments being integral parts of the board's deliberations that support sound decision-making. So we're trying to make an allusion to the notion that is the wisdom of the board that is being deferred to. And members are expected to give due deference to the majority decisions of the board as reflecting their collective wisdom and to avoid taking actions that undermine board decisions. So that is how we tried to address the main concern about requiring express support to the extent it required that. The other aspect that was raised at the last meeting was ensuring that in the event, the unlikely event, of course, that the president or vice president of the board might be implicated in misconduct, that there should be another party who would be responsible for carrying out the obligations of the member conduct. So we have assigned that to the third member of the executive committee, which is ordinarily the past president or another member. So that summarizes the work that we've done on this. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Reparigo, before you start, I just want to thank you for your engagement on this. That was helpful to make sure that we had the most nuanced view of all these issues.
Thank you for that, and I did want to start by thanking you, President Epstein, and then also General Counsel. I think Chancellor Oakley, I think Vice Chancellor Gonzalez, I think a number of people kind of passed around some thoughts on this, and so I just wanted to thank everybody for the engagement on that. I do want to just say publicly, though, that one of the things that I did talk about with General Counsel was that this is fashioned after some CCLC, I believe a CCLC language on trustee engagement and conduct. And I can appreciate the sentiment that's here, that once we make a decision that we uphold that collectively as a body and making that sort of as clean as possible. I do still have a little bit of concern and just want to make sure that I mention that, again, for those of us in operation, the students, the trustees, the classified staff and faculty often find ourselves in kind of precarious situations that ride the lines of this sometimes. And so knowing that a board policy can be pulled at any time for discussion, I'm comfortable with this going forward personally with the idea that if anybody, feels that there's conflict, that we bring it up for discussion at a later date if we need to. And so with that, I just wanted to, again, thank everybody for their help and to remind everybody that we can revisit if we need to. So thank you.
I'd also add that the last section of this provision does invite members to consult with me should there be concern about how to comply or what the meaning of the language is. So I would just reiterate that and invite those conversations.
Any other comment? Do you have a motion?
I'll move.
Member Rawlings, second.
Second.
Second, Member Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have a very special agenda item, the EOPS 50-year anniversary. And Vice Chancellor Rhonda Moore. Nope.
Schedule, so I will step in her place, and I'd like to invite our colleagues from the EOPS board, Danita and Omar, to join me up here.
Can you please identify yourself?
Sorry, good morning, Marty Alvarado, Executive Vice Chancellor Ed Services. This item is a recommendation to the board to acknowledge and recognize, good morning, the EOPS program and their 50th anniversary and the multiple years of service and commitment to our students and increasing our first gen and the equity conversations on our campuses.
Do you all want to say something?
Yes, good morning, Chancellor Oakley. See, I don't do this often. Good morning, Chancellor Oakley, President Epstein, Vice President Hayes, and members of the board. We're very honored to be here this morning. I'm I'm the president of the EOPS Association. It just means that I get to advocate for in my opinion, one of the best programs in the system. I work in community colleges for 25 years. I actually grew up in Mexico, so I'm a product of the community college system. And I remember coming from Mexico at the age of 18. And I don't know if you know, but in Mexico, community colleges do not exist. The structure of a community college doesn't exist. So I didn't know anything about anything related to education. I remember walking into a community college for the first time when I applied for a job. And I remember I had like a tennis court and a stadium, thinking it must be like a university. Well, lo and behold, then I learned what a community college was. And I believe that it was because of the work, like programs like EOPS, that many of us get to graduate and succeed in the system. So very honored, 50 years. We have changed the lives of thousands of students, and we look forward to continue doing so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I intended to let Omar do the talking, but I do want to thank you for this recognition. We know that categorical programs can sometimes be a rose with a thorn for many of our local leadership, but we do understand that there are students that have extraordinary needs and that will require more individualized attention, which they're able to get through programs like EOPS Care and other categorical programs. So as we participate in our local campuses and furthering the Chancellor's agenda and his vision for success and for the adoption of guided pathways, we believe there's still a place for programs that do this very particular type of partnership and service with our students. And so we appreciate your support and thank you for the acknowledgement.
Thank you. Any board member comments on this one? We have some public comment.
Yes. Yes, we do. I'm Dr. Debbie Klein and Dolores Dawson. Davison.
I just like that I've become a one name like Madonna.
I was getting ready to do that. I was just going to say Dolores.
Good morning, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, and Board of Governors. I'm Debbie Klein with the Faculty Association of the California Community Colleges. You all know that FAC has proudly represented EOPS in its advocacy work since 1999 for the past 20 years. EOPS was one of the first organizations to champion student equity in our system. FAC also wants to congratulate EOPS for its 50 years of service, and we look forward to another 50.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, and Board of Governors members. My name is Dolores Davison. I'm the Vice President of the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. We would also like to congratulate EOPS on their 50-year anniversary. At our plenary session last week, time flies, we passed a resolution unanimously congratulating EOPS, and I would like to read the two resolves. Resolved that the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges hereby congratulate Extended Opportunity Programs and Services on its 50 years of serving students, and resolved that the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges encourage local academic senates to foster awareness of EOPS at their colleges in order to promote student success. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe we have a resolution.
Resolution commending Extended Opportunity Programs and Services, EOPS, whereas the founding legislation for the Extended Opportunity Programs and Services Program, authored and introduced by Senator Al Alquist, was signed into law on September 4th, 1969, and whereas the goal of the program is to enable low-income, educationally disadvantaged students affected by language, social, and economic handicaps to achieve a college education, and whereas in its first year, the EOPS program served about 14,000 students at 46 California community colleges campuses, and whereas the EOPS program was expanded to all California community colleges, And whereas the EOPS program now serves nearly 100,000 students a year, and whereas the EOPS program offers a wide variety of services and support, including counseling and tutoring, textbook services, and need-based aid, and whereas research shows EOPS students have higher retention, completion, and transfer rates than the general student population, and whereas the Board of Governors desires to recognize the efforts of all EOPS faculty and staff for their long history of contributions to public education and the state of California, whereas the EOPS program is a critical and valued part of the California community colleges and is critical in advancing the goals of the Vision for Success, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges recognizes the 50-year anniversary of the EOPS program and its extraordinary impact on countless California community college students.
That's great.
So,
wait, first, Vice President Haynes wants to say something.
So, as a trustee, we at times have an opportunity to know what these programs look like on our campus. And while I could speak about Los Rios, who I want to speak about is Santa Barbara City College, which the chancellor visited at the beginning of this month, and I attended with him. At that particular program, there are 1,200 students, which is a huge number for the size of the college. It is a place where when we had an opportunity to meet not just the students who were there, but those who serve those students, it was a family. And I can't say enough about what our students need and what they're given relative to that particular program. Students who were homeless, who they help find housing. Students who don't have a meal, they make certain that they're fed. Students that don't have clothing, there is a place for them to go. That's what our student needs, and at every single day, the EOPS staff makes certain that they get what they need, and I wanted to recognize them for that.
Thank you. So I think we need a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Perigo and Aguinaldo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. I get it's photo time, right?
It is photo time.
as our EOPS folks come up, I also want to mention that coming from Long Beach, Dr. Joseph White left a long-standing legacy for EOPS, and I want to recognize him for his work. Cal State Long Beach has dedicated a lecture on his behalf, so if you guys are ever at Cal State Long Beach, feel free to recognize Dr. White's legacy.
That's a real two girls.
You're in the middle. That's my role.
There you go.
Congratulations, everyone.
All right, which one of you is going to be first to put that on Instagram? Okay, item 2.5, the district full-time obligation, faculty obligation number, Assistant Vice Chancellor Francis Parmalee.
Good morning, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the board. I'm joined here today with Rena Finch, our Director of Fiscal Standards and Accountability, to help me through some questions. My name is Frances Parmalee, the Assistant Vice Chancellor of College Finance and Facilities. Each November 20th, the BOG is required to determine whether or not there is adequate the current state budget has adequate resources to implement the increase in the full-time faculty hiring obligation, which is otherwise known as the FON, for the subsequent fall term. Back in 1988, AB 1725 was passed and established a goal for the system that 75% of instructional hours be taught by full-time faculty. As a gentle reminder, this 75% was simply a goal and not a requirement. Shortly after that, the board adopted two regulations to implement this new law, which establishes the FON. In 1988-89, a base year calculation of the FON was determined, and if the BOG determines that the FON should be implemented, each district is required to increase the number of full-time faculty employed proportional to the increase in credit FTES. So for example, if a district's credit FTS increases by 3% and the FON is at 100, that district is required to increase its FON to 103 in the subsequent fall term. To aid in your decision, I'll provide you some facts on the state budget. It clearly provides substantial investments to our system. The Budget Act includes $337 million in ongoing policy adjustments for our community colleges in comparison to the 18-19 expenditure levels. We received $265 million in total, which is a combination of a 3.26 COLA for our general apportionments. We received 3.26 COLA for certain core programs, such as our CalWorks, campus childcare, and our SEED program. And we also received 0.55% of growth. So with these funds that were provided to us, we recommend full implementation of the FON. As a side note, our office is currently collecting the necessary data for districts to determine compliance for fall of 2019. That data was required to be provided to us last Friday. Our office will be compiling that information and will be conducting an analysis and posting it on our website in early January. That concludes my presentation, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Member Baum.
First, I want to move approval of the recommendation, but the question I have, which is actually also a statement, in my 10 years on this board, one of the most frustrating things is to witness how little progress is being made by local districts in increasing the percentage. Now, I know 75% is a reach number, but there are many districts well below 50%. And we all know that students and a campus community is stronger by having a large number of full-time faculty present and engaged in a variety of ways. What measures beyond this do we have to encourage an increase in the percentage of full-time faculty on our campuses?
I'll jump in on that question, Member Baum. I think in the budget, this particular year, in the Board of Governors budget requests, we are requesting additional funds to hire full-time faculty in the budget. Now, we are also encouraging and supporting the diversification of faculty as a part of that, but we are asking specifically for funds for full-time faculty so that those funds would go directly to increasing that number.
Member Perigo.
Yeah, also kind of along the same lines of asking about, is it possible, or do we see something in the future where we can start to have this dialogue? Consequently, at the plenary session recently, Member Aguinaldo and I sat down with David Morris and Julie Bruno, who worked on some conversations, or I don't know if it was an informal group or a formal group, on the FON, as well as changing the 50% law. But even in that discussion, you know, I hadn't really thought about it, but the FON doesn't even break down by department. It's an overall number. So you could have a very healthy department and then one with 1 or 2 faculty members, and they can still hit the number. And it's my understanding that when the student-centered funding formula came out, that those discussions kind of waned as people felt like there was instability on what they knew they could fund. But I would push everybody's attention to, if you haven't read it already, the fact paper called Why Faculty Matter, and how it really talks about a clear connection between full-time faculty and the success of students. And so I guess my question is along the same lines, like, what can we do to start having this conversation that the small number of full-time faculty members that exist on some campuses and definitely in some departments is seriously detrimental to ever achieving the goals of the vision. It's seriously detrimental to ever reducing the equity gaps that exist. And so I don't know if I'm just opining at this point or if there is actual things that this board or that the chancellor's office can start engaging in to really start taking this question on again of and I get the mindset of the districts that part-time faculty is who disappears when they get into financial trouble, and that's a much easier thing for them to manage, the uncertainty of funding all the time. But I still don't think that we ever achieve our goals without addressing this issue. So I'm just curious if there's anything we could be doing.
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for the question. This is sort of an age-old discussion. And by the way, the proposal to change the FON and primarily the 50% law did go through the consultation council process. Unfortunately, there was an agreement consultation, so we're now trying to figure out if there is another way forward that we can bring back. The biggest issue we have, first of all, let me begin there. The biggest issue we have is that we are put in this unfortunate position of having to make difficult choices on campuses because the state of California doesn't adequately fund California community colleges. So we're constantly in the Sophie's choice situation where we're trying to choose between needs of students, needs of faculty, needs of part-time faculty. And some districts make better choices than others, clearly. So I think our role is to continue to press and ensure that we make it clear that full-time faculty are a critical component of achieving the vision for success. We're going to continue to press the state legislature to fund increases in full-time faculty hires. And the reason we say that is because I think while one can say, and this was my opinion as a former superintendent president, allocate the money to the districts, and the districts are in the best position to make choices about what the needs are on the ground. I continue to believe that's true, but in this case, we're asking for a specific line item for full-time faculty because we feel that it is crucially important that right now we fund specifically and send a message that we want more full-time faculty. So this is a tension that we're going to continue to deal with. I think Board of Governors, I'd invite them to have a conversation about where do we want to continue to ensure that we promote and support local control, but at the same time, what is the oversight role of the board in ensuring that colleges are making the right choice about their mix of full-time and part-time faculty? Those are difficult conversations.
Deal me in.
Okay.
Member Rawlings.
Yeah. Thank you for that response, Chancellor. This is an issue that's been pretty high on my priority list for a while, just seeing the impact that this has on students' lives. One of the things that, and I've brought this up in previous years as well, and one of the things as I've reflected over the past couple of years and at my time as a negotiator for a bargaining unit, I want to make sure that we're also giving the districts a little bit of credit and a little bit of latitude, particularly because you are inheriting, unless you're like a new community college, you're inheriting the work that someone else has done. So the contracts are in place, the operational structure, the administrative overhead is fairly well set. And to make a dramatic change in reaching the 75% ratio can be difficult, especially when you're at a college where maybe that's been a poor number in the past. I think the solution that the Chancellor has outlined and the work that we've been doing through our budget requests, I think is really probably the best way forward with it. And giving those districts who are underperforming just really a clear message. This remains a high priority of this board, and that we want to pursue that. So then when it comes down to the structural issues at the local level, they're going to be able to start making some better choices as far as the full-time, part-time faculty ratios.
I have a question.
Member Hall.
Just to give this some context, how many positions need to be filled in order to achieve the 75% goal? And as a subset, are there some majors that are, or some schools that are better than others? In other words, do we need more full-time math professors or English professors or history professors? Is it broken down like that?
So it is not broken down like that at the state level. Each college district goes through a faculty hiring prioritization process. And that is specific to what they feel the needs on the ground are. And of course, the academic senates of those colleges and the administration work through those processes. Many times they cannot always fill the number of positions that are needed because of funding issues. But in terms of to answer your first question, I don't have off the top of my head the number of full-time faculty the system would need to hire. I don't know if Kim or if anybody from FAC in the audience has that number off the top of their head, but it is a significant number.
Is it more than 1,000? Is it 5,000 positions?
It's well more than 1,000, I would imagine.
If I can just jump in, it's
Could you
about
identify yourself?
56 to 50.
I'm sorry, could you identify
Oh,
yourself?
I'm sorry. I'm Rena Finch, Director of Fiscal Standards and Accountability. And we collect the compliance forms. The percentage it wavers around 56 to 57% over the last few years as far as the percentage. So there's two ways to change that percentage. One is reducing the number of part-time, and the other is hiring more full-time. So what that breaks down in numbers, you've got about, in equivalent faculty terms, you've got about 34,000 to 35,000 over the last 3 years, and 19,400 to about 20,000 of those are full-time. So it fluctuates a little bit depending on also the level of part-time faculty.
So with the hiring of full-time faculty, then part-time faculty would have to be laid off, I assume, right?
Unless they're hired as full-time.
Member Perigo.
Yeah, just to maybe for further clarification, generally speaking, a district has to comply with any accreditation issues. So generally, career tech education will have certain numbers of faculty members that have to be present in the discipline in order to be accredited. So those usually get done first. And then we kind of figure out where the needs are through, as the chancellor said, some kind of allocation process. But I do want to say that one of the issues that I think that we need to be mindful of as we advocate for in this area is that what happens is that we get a flood of money, we hire thousands of people, and then 30 years we decimate the department when they all leave. Like, there's not a sustainable hiring mechanism so that we have a constant sort of flow. So I often use my example. I had there's 3 full-time faculty members left in my department that are edging out to that 30-year mark. I was the only faculty hire for 15 years after that, and now we just hired 7 new faculty members in the last few years. So 30 years from now or 25 years from now, our department's going to be completely decimated again when 7 full-time people leave. And this is kind of the cycle. And then also when you go through the stretch of 15 years without any new hires, you get kind of stale and stagnant. You need new people to breathe new life into what's going on. So I think not only advocating for a line item for faculty, but that it is a line item, that we get it consistently and we can kind of count on it so that we do have a good cycling of people through the system. And we always make sure that we're not, I mentor new faculty members at my campus, and one of my mentees was the only faculty member in her department and was writing program review and doing curriculum updates, and she just doesn't have the chops yet to do that, but she's the only one left in the department, so she has to. So that's kind of some of the struggles on the ground that we have without this being sort of a sustainable model.
And if I can just make a comment, I think Member Perigo points out some the challenges on the ground. I'd say two things. One is many college districts, and as we move into an era of constrained Prop 98 revenues, this number will increase. But many of our districts, I would say, are ranging around 86% salary and benefits as a percentage of their general fund. Some districts have crept into the 90% area, and I think we will begin to highlight those districts. 90% of their entire general fund budget is in salary and benefits. So as you can imagine, these are very difficult choices on the ground. And so I think we need to continue to press for more resources. There will be ballot measures that are coming up in the next year to find additional revenue sources. I think we need to continue to think about how we're actually going to grow our colleges and allow them the space and the capacity to fill the needs that our students have. But these are difficult choices. There is nothing stopping a district in any given year from hiring full-time faculty. The resources that they get are theirs to make choices on. The reason that this year we are putting a line item in is because what we're saying is we have to prioritize. Again, this is where we range between what is most appropriate to local control, because they have the resources, they make choices, and what is appropriate for the Board of Governors to weigh in on. I think that's going to be a continuous struggle as long as we're asking districts to make difficult choices with finite resources.
President Epstein, if I may just add something, this is a priority of the Consultation Council, and in fact, we agendized the 50% law in FON 4 different times this year. There was a working group that presented its recommendations to the Consultation Council. As the Chancellor mentioned, no consensus was reached. We spent 2 additional meetings requesting from the different groups specific letters that outline what would be their point of compromise, what additional data they would need to help us get a solution as a statewide council, so that we could bring it here to all of you. There has been a request for data since the departure of Vice Chancellor Osmeña. This team will take on that workload, and we plan on bringing back that item back to the Consultation Council in January with the data that they have requested, with the hopes of bringing you a compromise from the Consultation Council. And hopefully this discussion and hearing all of you today encourages the Consultation Council to come to the table and have very honest conversations.
Thank you. Member Baum.
I agree with the Chancellor, and I think what's missing here today for newer board members is the data, because in previous years, there's such a broad discrepancy. There's many schools that in districts into the 60% range, and they're knocking on the door, but there's some that are in the low 40s, and there's something culturally challenging. I don't want to say wrong, but challenging at some of the local districts, and you haven't seen those districts in the low 40s climb up 1 or 2% a year, even though we've authorized the funds. We've had economic downturns, and you understand the challenges there, but we haven't seen the measurable progress as we go towards that. Maybe the 75% is too much of a stretch goal, but I don't think anybody can argue that 40% is a defendable place for a district to be.
Vice President Haynes.
So I want to commend all of the faculty and all of the stakeholders who are trying to deal with this difficult issue. But I also want to say a couple of things. For those districts that are extremely in rural areas, to try to find a significant 50% of its faculty is at times very, very difficult. Just the access points for doing that. What I would say is that if there are districts and colleges that are not meeting that criteria, we have to sort of figure out what that profile looks like. we've got to be strategic relative to that and not sort of punish a district when their circumstances are such that it's extremely difficult to recruit in areas. Now, that might indeed be a minority of districts, but I think we still need to recognize that. And then finally, I just want to say out loud, with some recognition that what we're asking of all of the stakeholders to sort of deal with a number of priorities. The priority that, and I would absolutely agree and support, that our students are best served with full-time faculty. That should be also one of those highlights. We need that. We also need a diverse faculty. That's something that we have to work on, and it has to be held to a very high level of priority, given who our students are and the importance that sometimes we haven't recognized that they need to see folks in the classrooms that look like them. And so we've got to hold all of these different priorities high enough that we're not substituting one for the other, but trying to move that ball along or those goals along in a way that our students are best served by the kinds of priorities. And we need to make certain that our faculties across the state recognize the importance of all of those. I think they do, but part of that means to be extremely intentional about who those hires are. And so I just want to sort of say that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Aguinaldo.
I want to echo the comments that Vice President Haynes made around the importance of hiring full-time faculty and diverse faculty. I think those were the kinds of questions that we were discussing with Board Member Perigo and David Morris and Julie Bruno. So I want to acknowledge you guys specifically for sitting down and talking with me about the complexity of these issues. Because when I posed those questions, I got a very complicated but very justified answer. And I think that moving forward, I would love to see more detail, more breakdown around FON, the 50% rule, everything that would give, especially board members that don't deal with this issue on a daily basis, a good grasp on this issue, especially since it's been posed to the Consultation Council so many times. So thank you again for including me in that meeting. It was very illuminating, and the amount of knowledge and background that you guys have on this is truly impressive.
We have some public comment on this issue.
Thank you. I'm going to call all three of the speakers up. Debbie Klein from FACT, Larry Galizio, and John Stanskas.
Good morning again, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the Board of Governors. I'm Debbie Klein with the Faculty Association of the California Community Colleges. And VAC is very grateful and appreciative of this robust conversation that just happened. And these are the kinds of conversations our organization is engaging in on a daily basis. So we appreciate what just occurred here. Just for clarification, this might have been made clear, but there's two different numbers. The 75% goal, which is codified in AB 1725, is actually the 75% credit instruction being taught by full-time faculty. So that's currently at 56%. And the other number is a headcount number, which is 70% right now of the faculty are part-time, and 30% headcount are full-time. So those numbers often get confused with regard to the 75% goal. And then, of course, there's non-credit instruction, and FACT's goal has for a long time been that if it's the goal for credit instruction, 75% should also be the goal for non-credit instruction. So just a point of clarification there. Also, Board member Perigo mentioned our paper, and I've written, or we have, FAC has a two-pager that just sort of details the main arguments in the data, and we're happy to distribute the two-pager to the Board of Governors. We weren't prepared to do that today, but this is something we've been using in our advocacy work with our legislature, and our legislators are incredibly grateful to see the evidence for why the faculty are so important. So we're happy to make that available. And really what I was going to say here right now was already said, but it's the data shows that vital, ongoing, formal and informal faculty and student interactions are essential for student success. And just a partial list of these interactions include collaborative learning inside the classroom, student orientations, receptions, shared governance committees, research teams, joint conference presentations, clubs, community events, student governance, internships, office hours. 30 seconds. Supplemental instruction, independent studies, fieldwork, service learning, etc. So for all of the faculty to be able to work with our students in all of these capacities and generally being available to mentor our students is everything. So thank you.
Thank you.
Stop fighting, gentlemen. Somebody speak.
I didn't. Good morning, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the Board of Governors. I left my tie at home. This is the best I could do. But last year I left my pants at home, so this is
TMI.
better. I've improved as we move forward. I appreciate the discussion. This is the fourth time I have been here in November and heard the Board of Governors discuss full-time faculty and the need for full-time faculty. And the first time was inspiring. And the fourth time, it feels like we've had this discussion, but we still haven't done anything about it. And so I appreciate the attention. I too, this is the first year I haven't seen the printout of where each district is, and I think that is important information for you to see, not just to post later on a website. And I think it's important for everyone to see that different districts are at different places concerning this. I think that a lot has been said already about the need for full-time faculty. I don't need to address that. I do appreciate the work that Consultation Council is trying to do for this, but some of the questions here have been, what can the Board of Governors do? The faculty obligation number exists in Title V, not in Ed Code, which is the purview of the Board of Governors. We have known for a long time that the faculty obligation number is based on whatever full-time faculty ratio existed at a district in 1989, which was all over the place. And that's why the regulation tells some colleges that they are in compliance at 38%, and other colleges that they need to be in compliance at 67%. That's why there's a difference there, because it was built into the regulation in that way. You do have the opportunity to say, as we are moving forward with guided pathways that the legislature and everyone in the field understands is a decade-long cultural, introspective look at how systems operate, that as you reconstruct that, the Board of Governors advises that this is a minimum goal. Maybe it's not 75%, maybe it's 60%. If you're not at 60%, there's something that you need to do in your analysis of how your district operates to figure out how to do that. It could be a goal of the Board of Governors to direct Consultation Council to come up with something and bring it to us, for example. So those are some things that are within the purview of the Board of Governors to make some statements. And lastly, I would advocate that a small amount of money that appears in the budget every year dedicated to full-time faculty, if you haven't met a particular percentage, seems necessary and something that the Board of Governors could begin asking for next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, members of the board, Chancellor Oakley. First, I want to make clear that President Stanskis and I were joking about the tie before, so just for those of you who don't know, we're friends as far as, yes. So I just want to make sure that's very clear. First, I also wanted to make it very clear that I don't know a chancellor or superintendent president or campus president, nor do I know any of the 444 locally elected trustees who would not like to have a larger percentage of full-time faculty at their districts and at their institutions teaching the students. Having said that, and I think, Chancellor Oakley, I really appreciate what you said, and also Member Rollins, what you were saying. The sustainability of our districts is, the responsibility of the trustees and by proxy, the CEO. And so I just want to make it clear that it's not that there's not the will, but there are very real constraints. I mean, Chancellor Oakley, you mentioned the cost for personnel. I know my colleagues here at the dais also understand and recognize that part-time faculty do amazing work, that likely their compensation does not fit with the importance of their work. So that's also, and with guided pathways, we all know now, I think better because of the research, that our classified staff and administrators play an absolutely vital role. I mean, those might be you could have someone in the bookstore who is the person who connects with one of our students. So the sustainability is a question. So I think all of us are going to continue to advocate for more dollars because we're completely under-resourced for what we have to do. The FON, there are several districts that are well over the FON. There are also some concerns about whether the particular formula is indeed an accurate or the best means to arrive at the number. Not that we're going to get into that here, but that's another ongoing question and a complexity that exists that I think, we've all been grappling with. The goal of 75% full-time faculty is highly challenging for some of our districts. We already talked about earlier. We have a couple of districts we're very concerned about right now. So I guess, big picture is, I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that the will exists.
Thank you. Okay.
Jeff had a motion.
Jeff had made a motion to approve. Is there a second? Member Villalobos. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez.
All right, we're moving quite quickly. Item 2.6 is the election of board officers. At your September board meeting, there were 2 nominations, Tom Epstein for president, Pamela Haynes for vice president. And so today you have the opportunity to vote on your 2020 board officers. No other nominations were received.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. So that's
because you're wearing a tie.
Grande and Perry, that is. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. I have my acceptance speech here. Now, thank you. It's a great honor, and it's been particularly.
Do I get a vote?
No, it's been particularly fun to work with Vice President Haynes. It probably would have been more fun if it was just the BOG and didn't carry over to a second board, but we'll take what we can. And okay, Do you have anything to say, Vice President Haynes?
Thank you for saying it all, Mr. President.
Okay, the campus visit, item 2.7, Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez.
Item 2.7 is the vote for your September 2020 campus visit. So you may have been disappointed that you didn't get a band welcome this morning. But as you saw, it takes a lot of time and effort from the campus, extreme cost to host us. For the September 2020 board meeting, that is your offsite meeting, we have made a determination that to propose a recommendation to visit Napa Valley College in the Napa Valley Community College District. And this year we spent a little bit more time describing to you the selection process for that campus. So the first thing that we consider is the interest of that college, of the board. The second thing that we consider is the existence of facilities that could actually fit our board as well as host a public meeting. The third thing that we consider is whether the district or the campus has specific innovations and opportunities to learn that we can learn from as a board, as an office. And then the last thing is what was the last time that we visited that campus. So as you see, we have not been to that region in a while or that specific college. And so the recommendation in front of you is to vote for the for the board to visit Napa Valley College in September of 2020.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Holland Grande. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? No. Okay. One last action item. For those of you who plan your calendar 2 years in advance, we have the Board of Governors meeting dates for 2021.
Yep. So we're asking you to move forward to the future with us. And the dates are proposed in front of you. The only difference that I want to highlight for you is that in January of 2021, you do have Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is a holiday. And so we did move your board meeting to a Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Farrago, Rawlings. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? All right. Let's see here. I guess we can, we'll do the unlawful discrimination regulations, first reading. Member Vice General Counsel, Forrest DA. So I should read this first. Item 3.1 is a first reading and public hearing for proposed amendments to the regulations governing unlawful discrimination at community college districts. The Chancellor and staff will now provide information on the item.
Thank you, President Epstein. I have with me today Deputy Counsel Peter Kang, who has done a lot of work on this item and will be leading today's conversation about it. This is just first reading, so no vote today, but an opportunity for the board to consider these regulations.
All right, thank you, Mark. President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, members of the board, and Chancellor Oakley. So my name is Peter Kang, and General Office of General Counsel has been working on these amendments for quite some time. A little bit of introduction. These regulations have not been updated since 2008. It's a long time ago. Also, the Office of Civil Rights took a look at these regulations because students at our community colleges can appeal to the Chancellor's Office. They can also file complaints with the Office of Civil Rights. So we had a complaint back in, I believe, 2016 at Santa Rosa Junior College. The student did file with Office of Civil Rights. The student also appealed to the Chancellor's Office. So OCR took a look at what we did. They also took a look at our regulations and realized they're quite outdated. OCR eventually agreed with our conclusion that there is no discrimination. However, they wanted to work with us to see if we can make some of these changes since 2008 was a very long time ago. So that's why we're here today. The amendments that we've incorporated, they create clear standards, they update classes and characteristics, and there's a number of changes to make this easier, not only for students, faculty, staff members, but also for districts as well. And we've removed a lot of unnecessary noticing requirements. So As far as the consultative process, we did take this to Consultation Council in October. We consulted with Chief Student Service Officers, Chief Human Resource Officers. We've also run this by the local general councils that represent community college districts. So there's been a number of iterations of this draft, and so this is just the first reading today. There is a comment period, and so there's a lot of sections, and I won't go over each and every single one. I do want to bring up a couple of highlights, and then we can open it up for questions. So one of the things that we've done in this amendment is we've updated the classes and characteristics for section 59300 on page 69. We've included things such as gender expression, gender identity. This section hasn't been changed since 2008, so state law has changed since then, and we've made numerous amendments. Another section that I wanted to highlight was 59327, which is on page 71. The current regulations require districts to pursue informal resolution for every complaint. And so we felt that that was problematic because if there's a situation where the allegations are very egregious, the current amendments and the current regulations require informal resolution, which seems strange. Why would a district do that? Perhaps if the allegations are so egregious, maybe they should just jump towards an investigation. So informal resolution is not mandatory, but districts can go that route with the complainant's consent. So that's a big change that we've made. On the very next page, page 72, we've also allowed for verbal complaints. The current regulations require someone to actually put allegations in writing. So sometimes if you have a student, staff, or faculty member and they make a verbal complaint, under the current regulations, we're going to need them to put it in writing, which seems a bit absurd. So verbal complaints are allowed, and districts should take steps to document that and make sure that the allegations in writing are accurate as well. Another
Excuse me,
change.
I just have a question just
Sure.
about that, because I noticed the language there on page 72, section E, says the district authority shall reduce the verbal complaint in writing. Is that the right word? Did you mean to say reduce?
We're open to whatever you think is best.
Okay, I just thought that was an odd, okay.
So we can come back to that if you like, President Epstein. So another thing that we've done on page 73, you'll notice that we have removed section 59330, notice to the chancellor. Now, in lieu of that, we haven't, there's a lot of noticing requirements to the chancellor. Districts are required to send everything to us every single step of the way. And so we have removed those unnecessary noticing requirements. And instead, what we've done is we're requiring districts to keep track of the number of complaints that they receive and send the chancellor annual reports at the end of the year. Also, if there is an appeal to the chancellor's office, we will make that request to districts to send us any non-privileged documents for a specific matter. The reason why we're doing this is that it promotes efficiency, and it allows districts to actually handle these matters instead of just having to send noticing requirements every single time. It's a lot of paperwork. It's very burdensome. So that's why you see a lot of the noticing requirements being deleted. And one of the last things I wanted to touch on is page 75. This is a big section that we've added, 59337. We are aware that the proposed Title IX regulations, we're in the comment period. The comment period has ended. The federal government is reviewing it. So what we've done in this section is we have instructed districts that if a case falls within Title IX, please follow the Title IX regulations. However, if there are cases of student sexual misconduct that fall outside of Title IX, there's new case law that requires certain things. So that's what we've done for subdivisions B, N, and C. There's a USC case and there's the Westmont College case earlier this year that stated if in the event that there's student sexual misconduct and the student faces severe disciplinary sanctions, colleges and universities must offer certain things. And one of those things is the ability to either indirectly or directly cross-examine witnesses. So that was a big shift, and that is required by state law currently. So what we've decided to do in this situation is that instead of allowing colleges to make a determination whether they should allow for direct or indirect, we are only going to allow colleges to have indirect examination. And we've outlined what indirect examination means. And so subdivision C goes over how that should look. And the intent and the purpose of this is that we don't want victims to be cross-examined by, maybe the perpetrator or an attorney of the perpetrator. So the purpose of these regulations is to make this as student focused as possible. So that's why this section exists. This is not something that we just created. This is actually current case law. And so I think the last thing I'll touch upon is the Chancellor's review on appeal. That's page 79. The current regulations allow the Chancellor to review student appeals, and they have very archaic terms, reasonable cause, probable cause. So we've eliminated that, and what we've done is we've created specific issues on appeal. If the Chancellor receives student appeals, then we will review the appeals, and we review the appeals based on certain issues, and those issues are listed in section 59350. So the purpose of these regulations is to do a lot of cleanup, to update the regulations to reflect current state law. At the same time, we're very cognizant that we're in a holding pattern with the federal Title IX regulations as well. What we've proposed today does not conflict with federal Title IX if and when those regulations are adopted. So that's the whole purpose of why we're here today. And 2008 was a long time ago, so this was necessary in our opinion. Other than that, we are open to any questions.
On item 3.1, the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations Title V, sections 59300 through 59356 is now open. The purpose of the hearing is for the Board of Governors to receive comments and testimony from members of the public regarding the proposed regulations. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. Do we have any public comments? Well, okay. Okay, this concludes the public hearing on the matter. Now we can take comment from the Board of Governors. Oh, we do have a public comment. Oh, there it is. It's right here.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. It was not on my job. We do have one public comment. I do apologize. Eric Kaljume. Did I pronounce your last name correctly or not?
No, but most people don't.
I'm so sorry.
It's Kalyamagi.
I know the feeling.
Good morning, Chancellor Oakley, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, and members of the board. As a local president of a faculty association for many years, I would frequently find myself dealing with low-level complaints from faculty members against other faculty members or their administrators. And also, I would field queries from department chairs about how to deal with student complaints. It is a messy world. The majority, actually over half, of unhappy people that walk into one's office don't have a complaint. They're complaining, but that's a different thing. They're upset. They need to understand what the rules are. They need to calm down. And very frequently, these meetings can take half an hour or an hour, but at the end, the situation's understood and it's resolved. We are facing, in California right now, a significant increase in complaints on discrimination. Now, it may well be that we're uncovering cases of discrimination that otherwise would have been quiet. But I have, in my personal experience, dealt with cases where people have taken an unhappy person and have written or helped them write a document that actually didn't represent what actually occurred. It would be nice if everyone was noble, if everyone had the best interest of the system at heart, but unfortunately it is not always so. I once had an issue where a department chair took a student complaint, rewrote it, and then sent it forward without any indication as to who the student was. It's impossible to defend against that. I've also had cases, this is a very recent one, where an administrator accused a faculty member of harassment. It's an interesting world. At a minimum, I encourage the board to require the person who wishes to complain that they have been unfairly treated to submit their issues in writing. When you go ahead and allow for a third party to serve as the editor, to serve as the author of the document, you can distort the initial complaint. This complicates matters and the best case scenario, and it allows for abuse of the system. I encourage you to take out Section E of the proposed amendment to 59,328. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional members of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Okay, hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. This concludes the public hearing on this matter. We'll take comments from the board. Member Perigo.
Yeah, I have a similar concern, just having dealt with complaints as a chair. So when there's a verbal complaint, we often put it in writing, but then we have the student see a copy of what is in writing and then acknowledge that they agree that's what the conversation was. And I see that it says that there's appropriate steps to ensure that there would be some accuracy and reflection, but it doesn't really say what needs to happen. So I too would be more comfortable in a world where this was requirement of a written, or minimally that it was specific, that the person complaining be able to sign off on the summary or whatever is produced from their oral complaint. I do think that this leaves it a little broad and could misrepresent.
So I appreciate the comment. I think that the purpose of the regulations is to have those verbal complaints provided to the responsible district officer. So our assumption is that responsible district officer will be trained in how to do this appropriately, and local practices should make sure that appropriate steps are taken to make sure that the written document that reflects the verbal complaint is accurate. And I don't know that it's necessary for us to dictate how every district is going to make that assurance, but I think it's appropriate for the regulations to require it, and by requiring the verbal complaint to be made to the responsible district officer, I think that should eliminate a concern about a verbal complaint being made to just anybody on the faculty or a classified staff member who may not be trained to handle these kinds of complaints. So that was the intention. And I think that it is important to allow members to make a verbal complaint, because I think that is an obstacle. The requirement of the individual complainant making a written complaint is an obstacle that's not really necessary.
Any other? Yes. Member Escobar-Carrillo.
Hi, I also had a question. I mean, thinking down the line to implementation, if we will be providing any type of training through the chancellor's office to various colleges, just to make sure that these do seem like significant changes, but important changes, and it feels like it would be something appropriate to do. The other thing I was going to ask about is just reporting. If we require districts to report to us, or community colleges specifically to report to us on, because it's hard for me to know how many complaints get filed now, and what the trend is now, and if we're thinking that we might want to actually collect that data and share it with the board at some point down the line.
Yep. So thank you very much for the question. We we've been in talks with IUPI to do training, statewide trainings, and also working with the chief student service officers. There's a pre-conference that we are planning to do training on in March of next year as well. So definitely we're going to have training, and the purpose of the training is to have attorneys but also practitioners. I think a lot of times people, they hear about the law, but then they always ask, well, how do I implement it when I'm actually there? So yeah, trainings, we'll definitely have at least 3 next year. And as far as reporting goes, we did include a new section in the regulations, and that section is on, what page is it on? I can't find it right now. But there is a section where we are requiring districts to provide annual notice to the chancellor's office, and specifically what we want, it's on page 78, subdivision B. So we are requiring districts to provide an annual report to the chancellor's office, and we want to know the number of complaints that they're getting, whether it's employment related, whether it's student complaints, number of informal complaints, number of complaints that were substantiated, so that if there's a large number of complaints being substantiated, maybe there's something that we can do to help. Maybe it's something that we should look into. So that's why we've removed all the noticing requirements, but we're adding on this annual report, which should give us large numbers for all districts.
Yeah, just if I may add, the way things work right now is the districts are required to provide us copies of the complaints as they're filed. We don't really have any responsibility until an appeal is filed with the chancellor's office. So it seems like that paperwork is not particularly valuable. So what we have done is to eliminate the requirement that we receive notice early on from the district. But we do want to have access to the number of complaints that each district is receiving. So each district should be compiling those numbers anyway. So we're asking the districts to provide them to us. And then we make it clear that the districts are obligated to provide us whatever documentation we need once an appeal is filed with the chancellor's office. So we will have the documents we need, but not before we need them.
Member Perigo.
It just, can you define, going back to President Epstein's question, what reduce means in that sentence? Because I'm not sure if the appropriate word change would be summarize, or if it's not really a summary, if it's supposed to be more specific than that. So I'm just wondering if that's a legal term and if you could define that for us.
Well, actually, in looking at it, it may be one of those strange Canadianisms that occasionally finds its way into my
It was Mark's suggestion.
To me, it seems perfectly natural, but obviously it's not hitting here, so we'll find a new word for that. Okay. It means just record. We're basically recording, transcribing. Yeah.
I have no other board members have a question. I have a question. I was a little confused when you went through the part about not needing to or not permitting the accused to cross-examine the complainant, but on page 75. Under 59337B1, it says that the district student discipline procedures must provide an opportunity for the accused student to cross-examine witnesses, including the complainant. Is that derived from federal requirements, or what do you mean? Why is that there? I guess.
So that's derived from the USC case earlier this year. I think it was in February of 2019. That's the current case law now. The proposed Title IX regulations are also proposing the same thing. Right. But this is the current case law now. Regardless of what happens with the proposed Title IX regulations, this is what colleges and universities have to do in the event of student sexual misconduct. So the accused student does have that right to cross-examine the person who is making a complaint. And what the court case doesn't talk about is whether or not colleges are required to do it directly or indirectly. It's left up to the colleges. And so these regulations are making the requirement that it must be indirect, whether that's via teleconference, via a neutral person asking questions. And so that's why this change is here, or this section is added, I should say.
But what you're saying, you're authorizing colleges to make it indirect, but it says crystal clear here that the procedures must provide an opportunity for the student to cross-examine witnesses, including the complainant. That seems
Right.
to contradict what you just said.
So number one does say that the accused student to cross-examine, including cross-examine witnesses, including the complainant. However, we have defined what indirect cross-examination means in subdivision C, which is below.
So you think that subsection 1 is superseded by an indirect, or that defines what's permitted, is that it has to be indirect. I don't know, it's confusing to me, but maybe I'm misreading something.
So one way we can avoid that is we can strike out sub B1, because 2 does talk about cross-examination, but it mentions indirectly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it looks like 1 is an artifact, excuse me, of a prior edit. That's what I think is what's going on there. So we'll strike 1 and it'll just be 2. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you still want to speak? That was your thing. Okay.
But if there is an opportunity for the cross-examination, I think that's why E has to be better defined to make sure that the verbal complaint is as accurate as possible, so that the complainant has to stick by the statement that he or she makes. I mean, that's just part of the cross-examination that the accused would want to be able to refer to.
Agree.
Okay. Did I see some other hand go up? Vice President Haynes.
So I'm wondering, there has been public comment on the federal guidelines with this particular language, and our districts have made a determination one way or another whether or not they would make public comment in writing regarding it. I'm wondering to what extent that it is under consideration relative to this Board of Governors or not.
I'm not sure that I'm following the question.
Okay, so this is new language, and there are times when the Board of Governors will take a position and make public comment to the federal to the agency or who's doing the regs.
And we have with respect to Title IX.
Okay, and so my question is very specific. There are a number of areas where we have, but specifically to this direct and indirect, I don't want to use the word challenge because that's not the right word, examination of a witness. Is that within the Board of, or the Chancellor's office? Is that one of the items that was discussed or not discussed?
It was discussed in our comment letter to the Department of Education on the pending Title IX regulations.
All right, you want to share what that language was?
It's a long time ago that we wrote that letter, but it was the gist of it was that we expressed a concern that in total the number of the nature of and cumulative nature of the due process protections that were being afforded to respondents was a concern, and that we were concerned in particular that it would chill victims' willingness to come forward.
All right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further comment, we don't have any action today. This is a first reading, so thank you very much. I think we will take a break now till, I guess, take a 10-minute break.